Welcome to the Waycast, uh, Captain's Log 0429 2024. And we're in chapter 15 uh, with this Waycast. I got a call this afternoon, and they were concerned about um, a podcast that I had done a few days ago. It More specifically, it's in Matthew chapter 10 in verse 37. And here I'm going to show you this. This is the Bible that I was talking about in one of the other waycasts. And if you'll see how that, preachers just tend to read a verse here and there and don't read the whole chapter where you're doing topical. And so that's the reason I like doing this, is because we're going through the Bible and discovering it as it is. And so in chapter 10 and verse, I think I'm going to need stronger glasses to read it out of this. And he that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And what I did is I said that somewhere else in the Bible that it says, hate thy mother and father and brother and sister. Well, I was referring to Luke chapter 14. Mark, Luke, John, Luke chapter 14 and verse 26, which is what the person that called me was able to find, but we didn't look at it whenever I was talking to them. That's not it. 14 and 26. I'm sorry. And if any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, ye and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. So you have to be a little on the uh, depressed side, I guess is the way it sounds. But I Brother Mark preached on this sometime back, and I kind of alluded to what he said. But I looked up this word hate here, and it actually means hate. It means uh, it is messio. Messio is the Greek word, means to hate, hateful, pursue with hatred, to detest. And so that's rather harsh. Jesus to say, hate thy father and thy mother. And let's read the rest. Let's read it one more time. Hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, yea, and his own life also cannot be my disciple. See, the problem was we know several of the disciples had wives, and so can you imagine? I can imagine some wives. You got a disciple trampling all over the country with this single man. Today women would be in an uproar. In fact, I pointed out to my friend that called me was that I've had wives, and my Laronda has had a husband that basically, because we were in church so much, they said that we needed to marry somebody that wanted to be in church every night of the week, and so I'm sure that they felt abandoned whenever that we chose to do what God requires of us and worship Him as often as we can. That our pursuit of Christ made them feel abandoned. I'm sure, and that's what that I said. It isn't that we are to hate them. It is that what I said is that in perception of our love to Jesus, as opposed to the love we have for everyone else, it looks like. That's what Mark said. They may feel like we hate them in comparison because we may desert them to follow Christ for whatever He asked us to do. We have to be obedient. Now, this doesn't give you license to, as in Corinthians, to divorce your spouse that doesn't know Jesus and that sort of thing. But that was my explanation. That was the way that Mark explained it. If you have a better explanation, I'll go into it again and look at it again. But it sounds very harsh there on the appearance. Jesus is saying, let's read it one more time. If any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brother and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. And what he's talking about here is, I'm sure the person that calls me is going to remind me that, who's he speaking to? He's speaking to not everyone in general, but he's talking about these disciples. If they're going to the 12 that wound up following him, he had a multitude that were following him at that time that were his disciples, and a lot of them turned away after the speech, and so he needed to weed them out. And so he was saying, if you can't give up your life and follow me, I don't have a place to live, I don't have food to eat, I don't have money to make our way or anything like that, then you don't need to follow us at this time. So it's talking about his disciple, to be a disciple. And so if you want him to disciple you, you have to give up everything. So now let's go back to Matthew chapter 15. And we see there, we see a movement of the king toward the cross. We have seen rejection and conflict. Here in this chapter, he denounces the scribes and the Pharisees. He rebukes the disciples. He heals the daughter of the Syrophoenician woman and the multitude. And then he feeds the 4,000. So there's a lot in all of these little chapters as we go along. And so there's a lot to take in. And here, as we start reading in chapter 15, then came Jesus to the scribes. Then came to Jesus the scribes and the Pharisees, which were of Jerusalem, saying, why do thy disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread. So Jesus is way out in the wilderness. And they make all this trek, and they trek out there to him, and this is what they have to ask him. Why is your disciples not wash their hands? They came out to criticize him. And this was the only thing that they thought, we found something we can criticize him about. We must go and confront him. The problem, it wasn't the law, it was a tradition. So this is putting tradition above the Bible. We see this a lot. I learned this from Charlie Dean. We see this a lot in our churches today, that we have a lot of traditions that the people put before the Bible. We've always done it that way, is how that Charlie said that you'll know that. So, like I said, I lean heavily on Jay Vernon. I want to give him credit for a lot of the notes as I'm going through this, because he's went through the Bible. He's already done the work. I just am following him and adding to as it comes along. And as I said, I won't always agree with him. But it is the outward ceremony the ceremonial cleansing. And so we're going to see that Jesus is going to point out is that you can make, in another place he says, you make whitewashed tombs. You paint the tombs white, but then where inside is dead man's bones, and you can't cover that. And so that's kind of the reason, I invite you into my home, and this is how I live, uh, and I thought that I would wear my shirt that I was wearing today. I'm not going to, instead of primping up for you today, so that I'm not. It's a metaphor to. I'm not changing my outward appearance to so that you will. That's not what is important. What is important is what is on the inside today. So, verse 3. And he answered and said unto them, why do you also transgress the commandment of God by your tradition? He accuses them of, of breaking the law with tradition, and by allowing a man to break the law with their tradition. And he goes into which tradition that was. I wish I knew as much as Jesus did so I could fight my battles like he does. Verse 4. For God commanded, saying, honor thy father and thy mother, and he that curseth father or mother, let him die the death. But ye say, whosoever shall say to his father and mother, it it is a gift by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, and honor not his father and mother, he shall be free. Thus, thus have I made uh, the commandment of God of none effect by your tradition. So he's saying here what the tradition, uh, what they had worked out was that it's sort of like paying uh, indiscretions with the Catholic Church. They could, instead of taking care of their mother and father, they could take that money and give it to the church, and it was okay that they didn't take care of their mother and their father in their old age. In other words, if you're you make sure that they're fed, and the money that you would have for their upkeep. And if you didn't upkeep your family, then you could have given that the uh, to the church. Verse 7 says, "Ye hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying." Now, hypocrites is the most frightful word in Scripture. They were playing religion, in other words, but they didn't get it. It wasn't that big of a deal back then. We really get it today. If you want to really get a Christian, call him a hypocrite. But the reason is because we don't understand the definition of the word. It was a term describing an actor. There would be only men, so men would have to play women and men, and they would do entire costume changes. And so it's not just being an actor. It's not be. I like to go take it a step further and say that it's whenever we talk about wolves in sheep's clothing. It's it is like here we're talking about whitewashed tombs. It's covering the outside, making it look good, and not worrying about the inside. Where the inside is the important part that we should be worried about. Verse 8 says, "This people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth, and honor with me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. And so that's what he is saying here, is that uh, they they say that they're a follower of Jesus. They say good things about him, but in their heart they hate him and they despise him, and they want to say evil things about him. Verse 9. But in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commands of men. And he called the multitude and said unto them, Hear and understand. Not that which goeth into the mouth defileth the mouth, but that which cometh out of the mouth defileth uh, a man. So they were, uh, uh, can't read this word, sorry. He would, they were overgeneralizing. He would offend the Pharisees. They were, oh, I didn't read far enough. I'm sorry. Then came his disciples and said unto him, Knowest thou that the Pharisees were offended after they heard this saying? And so they were uh, they were uh, amazed that he offended the Pharisees. His disciples were, and so uh, he. I'm going to switch to my Bible app. I'm sorry. It's a lot larger and I can read it a lot better. I'm basically blind. Of course, that's my excuse. I say I can't read because I read on an eighth grade level, but in reality, I make it out that I can't see the words. But pardon my this interruption. But I'm going to switch to my Bible app. It's not working reading out my Bible. And that's the reason that I always read out the Bible app. We're in verse 13. But he answered and said, Every plant which my heavenly Father hath not planted shall be rooted up. Now, Jay Vernon says that plants should be systems. So every religious system which my heavenly Father hath not planted shall be rooted up. Verse 14, let them alone. Be blind leaders of the blind, and this blind leadeth the blind, they shall both fall into a ditch. So here we see sarcasm. This is another verse that we use in Celebrate Recovery, but it's somewhere else that they heap upon them rules that they themselves don't keep, and uh, the blind leadeth the blind, they both fall into the ditch. Is not encouraging people not to follow people that don't know what they're talking about. And so he's being sarcastic here. It's interesting that the Lord has some sarcastic humor to kind of have a humor break amongst this conflict, this altercation that he's having with the Pharisees. Then answered Peter and said to him, Declare unto us this parable. In verse 16, and Jesus said, Are ye also yet without understanding? He just got through telling them in other parable, and when he explained other parables, that the parables were meant for them to understand. And he tells things in parables so that they will understand and others will understand it. But they're not getting the parables. He has been speaking parables to them all along, and they're not getting it. The disciples are really struggling at this point. Do not ye yet understand that whatsoever entereth in at the mouth goes in the belly, and is cast out into the drought? I guess he gets really specific here. But those things which proceedeth out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile the man. So here we have it's what comes out of the mouth defiles because it's from the heart. The mouth betrays the person. The mouth tells you where the heart is of the person, and so he's going to go into that into more detail. So don't get freaked out yet. For out of the mouth proceedeth evil thoughts, murders, adulterers, fornications, thefts, false witness, and blasphemings. These are the things which defile a man, but to eat with unwashed hands defileth not a man. So good, we get to quit washing our hands. Jay Vernon points out that there wasn't really any medicinal purpose in it. Back then, they didn't have hot water. It makes sense that it really didn't purify the hands. It was just a ceremonial activity. The here there we see today this new morality today. It's the same old thing as we have here. Evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, and blasphemings. So those things are what proceeds out of the mouth that defile a man. He'd already talked about some of those things. Is murderers when we say hateful things to people and the like, or lie about people and they kill themselves. A very false witness is basically murder. That's why that is false witness is listed here, blasphemies. And so, verse 21, it says, Then Jesus went thence and departed in the coast of Tyre and Sidon. So he left the land. For the first time, for the first time he leaves the land. He came as king and rejected, and there was an open break between him and the religious leaders. He now will receive the Gentiles. So as I said, Jay Vernon says it doesn't help to what ifs, but if the Jews had accepted him and he became the Messiah, that's what it would have ushered in the millennial, the Messianic age. He would have been the king of the Jews. But they rejected him. So now he's going to turn to the Gentiles who are not rejecting him. And so that's what we're going to see in these following verses. And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coast and cried unto him, saying, Have mercy upon me, O Lord, the son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with the devil. So she had no claim as the son of David, though, because she's not a Jew. So she has no claim upon his kingship, his lordship, but she claims it anyway. Verse 23, But he answered her not a word, and his disciples came and besought him, saying, Send her away, for she crieth after us. So he ignores her because she has no claim on him. And so then in verse 24, but he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And so he is the king of the Jews. That's what he came as the Messiah. He's being rejected, but that's what he came for. In fact, he dies as the king of the Jews. They put the placard above his head that says King of the Jews in 3 different languages, so nobody didn't misunderstand and miss the point that this was the King of the Jews, this was the Messiah, that this is who he was. And then verse 25, then came she and worshipped him, saying, Lord, help me, Jesus. That's my John Baker, my very own John Baker, my sponsor that's gone on to be with the Lord, taught me the greatest prayer you can pray is help me, Jesus. Lord, help me, Jesus. And that's what she does. Lord, help me. She worships him, and that gets his attention here in verse 26. But he answered and said, it is not meet to take children's bread and to cast it to the dogs. This would put most of us off. What he is saying is, I'm the bread of life. It's not, I can't take this bread from the children and give it to the dogs, which is what they considered them half breeds because they were half Israelites and they were half Gentile, and uh, that precluded them from participating in the temple. They couldn't enter the temple. They couldn't do many things because that they had Gentile blood in them. And so, but she sticks with it, and she said, "Truth, Lord, yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from the master's table." Remember Lazarus? He ate with the dogs from he was a leper. They ate from the crumbs from the table, and so she speaks well. Then Jesus answered and said to her, "O woman, great is thy faith. Be it unto thee even as thou wilt." And her daughter was made whole that very same hour. And so the Lord responds in a positive way and heals her daughter. By the Sea of Galilee in verse 29, and Jesus departed from thence and came nigh unto the Sea of Galilee, and went up into the mountain and sat down there. And great multitudes came unto him, having with them those that were lame, blind, dumb, maimed, and many others, and cast them down at Jesus' feet, and he healed them. Multitudes were healed. Jay Vernon likes to point this out over and over again. Multitudes were healed, not just the examples we have here. This is just a touch of the multitudes that were healed, and no one denied that he that he healed, that he did these healings. Verse 31, insomuch that the multitude wondered when they saw the dumb to speak, the maimed to be whole, the lame to walk, and the blind to see, and they glorified the God of Israel. And then Jesus called his disciples unto him and said, I have compassion on the multitude, because they continue with me now 3 days and have nothing to eat. I will not send them away fasting, lest they faint in the way. So here he is pointing out that he is wanting to feed them. They're in the wilderness, they're in the middle of nowhere, feed them again. Verse 33, and his disciples say unto him, whence should we have so much bread in the wilderness as to fill a great multitude? You think it's a rerun of the 5,000, the 4,000 is. We are in the section of the rejection of Jesus as king here. This is redoing the miracles and showing his ability to carry out the ethos of the again, but with a different people. With this people, he did these mighty works, these miracles, and he's feeding the 5,000, the 4,000 this time, just like he did before. But it also shows that the disciples are slow to learn, that they're having real trouble here keeping up with Jesus. It may have been, Jay Vernon points out, it may have been just days ago that they fed 5,000, that they would have seen And it all often makes you wonder the same way. He feeds the 5,000, and then the next day they doubt his ability to do something. And then he says, "Oh, wicked generation, that has no faith." And we see that time and time again. And then, as we keep reading in verse 34, and Jesus said unto them, "How many loaves have ye?" And they said, "Seven, and a few fishes." And he commanded them the multitude to set down on the ground. And he took the 7 loaves and the fishes, and gave thanks, and brake them, and gave to his disciples, and disciples to the multitude. And they did eat, and were filled, and they took up of the broken meat that was left 7 baskets full. And so, he feeds 4,000 plus, which is probably closer to 12,000 people this time. Verse 38, and they that did eat were 4,000 men, besides women and children. And he sent away the multitude, and took a ship, and came to the coast of Magdala. J. Vernon points out that Magdala is now in ruins, but as his disciples are slow to believe. He is always patient with you and me. We need to catch up with him today, though, and that's where that J. Vernon leaves us off today, as chapter 15. We'll continue in chapter 16 the next time we meet. Au revoir, salut, be good night, and we will catch up next week. Like, subscribe, comment, and we will answer your comments. Call me if you want. We'll discuss some things, and I'll update my podcast. And that's where we learn, is iron sharpening iron. We're going to learn from these by finding out uh, by challenging each other on our what we how we see these books. So comment, uh, and let me know if you have any questions, comments. Probably leave off snide remarks, I guess. Nobody understands it. But anyway, maybe a snide remark would be like, "Tony, you need to shave." "Tony, you need a shower." "Tony, you need to wear something more appropriate." But I want you to feel at home. I want you to feel welcome here. I want you to feel like you're sitting here with me in my home, sitting in this chair, and we're just discussing the Bible. We're reading the chapter and then discussing it. And that's what would be my ultimate goal. Like I said, it'd be nice if I could figure out how to put split screen, like I see uh, uh, Laura and Peterson and all of these people do, or that they interview people, and we could discuss the Bible that way. That would be awesome too. But I don't know how to do that, so we'll do it this way until we learn another way of doing it. Talk to you later.